Hey James, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, Todd. How are you?
Oh man, I'm great. I'm very excited. I've been looking forward to this Facebook Live for a long time. And so, guys, as I'm introducing James, James is a police officer, a sheriff's deputy. He has 19 years of experience, and he is a member of the preparedness community. I link to his articles all the time on Prepper website, and I actually read his articles on the podcast very often. And so, when I was thinking about home security, because I know that that is something that a lot of people are interested in, they want to feel safer. I thought about James, and so I'm so glad that you are here with us, James. So, with that, I don't want to just waste everybody's time from me talking. I want to go ahead and let you get in here. So, can you tell us a little bit about why you got into preparedness, and we're going to be talking a little bit about, police, being a police officer and all that kind of stuff. But can you talk a little bit about why you got into preparedness and introduce yourself that way?
Sure. My name's James Leery. Like I said, I am a deputy sheriff. I've been in law enforcement coming up almost 20 years. Um, my preparedness was actually something my family did back when I was a kid. It wasn't called being a prepper back then. We just had extra food. We had extra water and extra supplies just in case something traumatic happened. And I guess in my 20s, I went to college and I kind of just let it kind of, I don't want to say blew it off, but I didn't think about it. And then I started watching in the early 2000s. I started watching things like Katrina. Central Oklahoma got hit with some massive tornadoes, and it just kind of it made me realize, maybe my parents had a pretty good idea, and I started, just started off slowly, and it's just developed over time. And local people encouraged me, hey, you should, you're a police officer. Some of this can directly impact uh, people out there. You can educate them on what you've learned. And so I actually started writing for a different website, and I wrote for Gray Wolf Survival for about a year or so. And he encouraged me, hey, you should get out and do it on your own, and I did. And I guess I've had the website about three or 4 years now.
Wow. Yeah. We used to link to Scott stuff all the time. I know that
Mm.
he's kind of taken a little bit of a break, but
Yeah,
that's great, man. Scott always put out great stuff. So if he
yeah.
encouraged you to get out there and to write, I know that he really saw that in you, that you had a lot to offer. So you're in the preparedness community. You're writing, but you're a police officer. You've been a police officer
Mhm.
for a long time. So, what got you going into that line of work? Somebody has already said, I think Chen already in the Facebook page has said, thanks for your service. So,
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
so tell us why you got into police work. I mean, what was the draw there?
I well, growing up as a kid, initially I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and then my eyes weren't very good, and I had medical problems that actually wouldn't let me get into the military at all, and so I just kind of gravitated towards law enforcement, and it's something that I enjoy doing, and I'm coming up on 20 years, and I still love it.
Wow. So, you're out there, you see a lot of things that are going on. You probably see a lot of things that, we're kind of we have that normalcy bias a lot of the times, and you hear about that in the preparedness community. You're seeing a lot of crazy things going on there as a police officer. What has changed in the 19 years that when you started to now? Has anything changed, or has it just been pretty much keeping the same old?
No, it's definitely changed. Um, I want to say that overall, the level of violence has come down some, or the overall, but the tenacity, the what's the word I'm looking for? Just how violent some people have become, or how crazy some people have gone. In my opinion, has gotten worse. I see more and more people experimenting with drugs, and Oklahoma has medical marijuana. I'm not trying to be political, but marijuana is not something that I was actually on a drug task force for years. Marijuana wasn't something we worried about. The problem is the harder drugs, and that's becoming methamphetamine and heroin. That's becoming a major problem in our area, and that's leading to more violence, more crime, more just craziness. And of course, you see it on the news now with the political aspects. Just in some places, parts of the East Coast and West Coast, I don't know that I'd even want to go there. It's just gotten so crazy.
We were talking a little bit before we got started. That was one of the things that we said. I mean, it's something that we see on a regular basis, and we need to be careful about. And we go out there, and you have to be situationally aware, definitely. So, can you talk a little bit about that as far as, because I know that is one of the things that you believe in. And can you just touch on that briefly? I think that would be helpful for people that are listening, at least coming from a police officer's point of view.
Yeah, to me, I think, and I actually wrote an article on it here a year or two ago about situational awareness. People talk about all the different skills and all the prepper skills and that kind of stuff. To me, I think it all starts with situational awareness, and especially when you see all the violence and the active shooters and the terrorism and all that craziness going on. You really have to stop and pay attention to what's going on around you. And yet so many people are walking down the street, doing on their cell phone, just oblivious to what's going on around them. And so I think when it comes to survival, when it comes to just keeping yourself safe, the number one thing you have to do is look up, look around, and pay attention to what's going on around you.
Awesome. That's definitely, I mean, I couldn't agree more with you on that. Hey, so can I ask you another prepping question before we get into home security?
Okay.
So, as a police officer, you got that great belt, right? You have that, you EDC stuff all the time. And so, what kind of EDC would you say for the regular person out there that's not a police officer, that doesn't have the Batman utility belt on them, right? What would you suggest are some great EDC things to carry around?
The first thing I always talk about having on you, to me, the most important piece of equipment is your cell phone. Believe it or not, 95, 98% of all problems and stuff going on can be, I don't want to say quickly resolved, but at least you can notify help with your cell phone. I actually, here a while back, I got into a kind of an email debate with a guy who basically said that, well, when we have an EMP, it'll wipe your cell phones out. And my argument was, well, that's potentially true, but in 2015, for example, there were about 40,000 people killed in the U.S. in automobile accidents and probably over 4 million injuries. In 2015, 0 people were affected by an EMP. So my thought is, well, the more important thing would be to have a cell phone to call for help. If you're in a car wreck, or, I want to say there was about, I think it was 4.4 million visits to the ER in 2015. In my opinion, the most important thing you do is have a phone, call 911, call an ambulance if somebody's sick or having a heart attack or whatever. So to me, the most important thing would be a cell phone. Me personally, I never leave my house unarmed. Even if I'm just running down the street, I have and I carry concealed. I also have a little bitty flashlight that I carry on me at all times. I've got my knife, I've got my wallet, I keep some spare cash, my keys, that kind of stuff. But to me, the number one thing I don't go anywhere without is my cell phone.
That's great, and I'm glad you said that about the EMP, right? Because that's something that we hear all the time. I talk about it on the podcast all the time. I know that if I put an EMP article on Prepper website, that one's going to get a lot of hits, a lot of clicks, because that's the one thing that people are, I don't know, fearful about. They want to know more information about. But we can't prepare or live our lives in fear of an EMP. I mean, think about all the living that you don't do because you're living in fear of an EMP. So until that happens, carry around your cell phone. That's great advice. All right, so you're here to talk a little bit about home security. talk to us a little bit about what we needed to be considering, because as you talked about the violent crime. I know that in my area, I live in the suburb of Houston. I'm on a Facebook group that talks about crime. I mean, it pretty much only talks about crime and those types of issues. And everybody has said that they've seen it on the rise lately. And so I think that's one of the things that we need to be concerned about, and one of those things that we need to be, I guess, situationally aware and put into place as many things as we can to make sure that we are secure and safe. So, can you talk to us a little bit about home security? I know that's kind of general, that's just broad. I'm just going to kind of let you go with it and just take it wherever you want to go with it.
Sure, no problem. In fact, that's actually great because with the holidays coming up, I think a lot of studies, with insurance companies and FBI uniform crime reports, property theft and break-ins, burglaries, that kind of stuff always go up over the holiday season. In some cases, some studies have found that it's gone up, 40, 50% over the rest of the time. And it just does. In fact, we had a whole agency meeting here a week or so ago, and that was something they mentioned. Hey, holidays are here. Burglary crimes, property crimes are fixing to go up. Um, I want to say in I want to say 2016 or so, there were a little over 2 million burglaries in the United States, and that comes out to one about every 15 or 20 seconds.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's just and like I said, mentioned earlier, with drug use going up, people have to pay for that. Property crimes have been on the rise, and I hate to say that. Um, so I know people have asked me, and I've written some articles, and I know some of this is common sense stuff, but I wanted to share some tips and some things that to consider to try to protect yourself from potential burglaries, or even to try to prevent yourself from maybe even being a target.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, go for it, man. Just
Okay.
share
Uh,
away.
First thing I do, and I preach this to my kids, I preach it to my family. Always, always, always lock your car doors, lock your windows, lock your house. Even if you live on the second floor, lock the second story windows. Um, I mentioned the other day that the vast majority of crimes are crimes of opportunity. Somebody walks by your car, they look in, they see your purse or a wallet or something of value. Your car's unlocked, they open it, they grab it, and off they go. Or a lot of times, there have been times where people said, "Well, my car alarm was set," and I'm like, "Yeah, but they could open your door, grab your valuables, and be gone in 15 seconds. That car alarm doesn't mean anything." So the number one tip, and I know I know it's pretty basic, but just make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows. The second thing that I would suggest is, and you mentioned earlier about potentially buying a house, or some things you do. I would try to, if at all possible, stay away from exterior doors that have big, huge windows, if possible. Probably here in the next 3 or 4 years, I'm going to buy some land. I want to build a house. I'm not going to install sliding glass doors. So many people put those in the back, and they are so easy to break. Even if they're braced, it's glass. If you are if you're already living in a home and you got that glass, there are things you can do to protect it. They've got security film that you can put over your windows. I'd encourage you to do that. That way, if somebody does try to break the glass, it holds that glass in. It makes it a lot more difficult to get in. It's like a film. I actually, several years ago, I had somebody attempt to break into my car. I was in the gym. I came out, and my driver's side window was shattered, but because I had it tinted, the glass stayed put, and so they didn't get anything in the car. I may have to replace the window. So that's something to consider. Um, Also, like I said, if you already have a sliding glass door in your house, go ahead and brace it. Use, my sister has one. She actually has a 2x4 that slides perfectly, so they can't open that door. She also put the film over her windows. Um, Number three is, if you've got door frames, A lot of people will take 3-inch screws and drill it along the frame so that goes into the wall stud. That helps to prevent your door from being kicked open. Um, you use reinforced locks and striker plates. I think you can get those at Lowe's or Home Depot. Again, those will help to protect your door and help secure windows. Um, some of the other stuff, I know social media is huge. People love Facebook and Instagram. Uh, I would encourage people not only do you not want to post that you're getting ready to go on vacation for a week to Jamaica or wherever, while you're there, I would avoid posting. And I know it's hard. Everybody wants to post pictures of the beach or pictures of the steak or pictures of their margarita or whatever. If you have to post those, wait till after you get home. You don't need to let everybody know that you're not home, that you're out on vacation. Uh, I don't know about major cities, but I know a lot of the suburbs. If you call the police department ahead of time and say, "Hey, we're going to be gone for a week. Can you?" Essentially, it's called extra patrol. Just keep an eye on my house. A lot of times, if they're not busy, the police will increase their patrols in that area. So, that was something we did when I am and still do as both as a deputy sheriff and as a police officer. The other thing, going back to social media, I said not only to don't post pictures of your travel plans, but uh, don't post pictures of any, especially now with the holidays. I would avoid posting pictures of high ticket items. You might be proud that you've got a new 65-inch, 4K, 4D TV or whatever, and a PlayStation 4. But posting that on social media, you have no idea how many people can have can have access to that. So, and in addition, come Christmas or after you get it, don't set the boxes out to be picked up in the trash. Break them down, take them somewhere else, drive a couple miles, find a dumpster or whatever, put them in there. But you don't want to advertise to the world that these items are sitting in your house. The other thing I would encourage, and I encourage people to do this all the time as a police officer, take pictures of these high dollar items, and not just pictures, but take a second picture of the serial number. I don't know how many times in the past I would go and take a report on a burglary, and people would say, well, my laptop was stolen and my gold necklace was stolen. Okay, well, what kind of laptop was it? Well, it was a gray one and it had a sticker of a skull on it. That that doesn't really help us. If you have pictures of it and pictures of the serial number, at least in my state, we enter that into a log, and or we enter it to National Crime Computer. And according to state statute, if somebody goes and pawns something, the pawn shop has to enter that serial number into that database. If it's stolen, it'll flag. So every TV, every computer, every firearm, anything of value that could be stolen, not only do I have a picture of it, I have a second picture of it on my, of the serial number, and this helps not only the police should I ever be broken into, but it will also help with your insurance claim. If you go to make an insurance claim, hey, uh, here are the pictures, and here are the serial numbers of my items. That actually helped me several years ago when the apartment I lived in was hit by a tornado. I already had all those pictures on my phone, and I just sent them to my insurance agent, and had no problems being able to claim that stuff because I could prove that I had it. So that is something, and you can do that in 30 minutes or less. Go through like I said, every computer, your PlayStation, your TV, all your guns. Take pictures and take pictures of serial number, jewelry, watches. Take pictures of it because those pictures can be so much easier to help solve a crime than just a description of a gray computer with a gray laptop with a sculptor on
Hey,
it. So,
James, can I ask you a question here? I don't want to like break your concentration and
no, go ahead.
where you're going, but a lot of the times you hear people talk about taking video,
Uh-huh.
and so I know that a picture definitely would be helpful, and then a close up of the serial number. But would a video add to anything there, or is it just extra, or is it a waste of time?
I would always, you can absolutely. Um, in the past, when I've taken them, people have had pictures. I've just taken them, or if they've even had a video, I just took a still off of the video. But absolutely, if you want to take a video of it and a video of okay, here's the TV, here's where it's setting. Absolutely, no harm in doing that. I also want to let people know, uh, and it's kind of funny shows like CSI and the I actually I hate those shows because people watch those shows and they think that's what it's like in real life, and it's really not. There is no super crime computer that we can put a set of fingerprints into, and at the end of a commercial break, the suspect, his picture, his address, everything. It doesn't work that way. We can take the print or the DNA or whatever it is, and we have to have a suspect to compare them to. We can't just enter them in to a national crime computer. So that's that. Those type of shows are unrealistic. So if they do show up and you've got video, that will certainly help. But don't think because the officer got some prints that 2 days later you're going to get all your stuff back. I know the wait for us for DNA and fingerprint and that stuff is months and sometimes years before they can get it back to you. And cases like murder and rape and those kind of cases will always take precedence. So don't count on just a set of fingerprints being able to solve the case. You have to be proactive. You have to get some of the, like I said, these pictures and serial numbers. You have to do some of this stuff yourself before a potential burglar or property crime.
So you're prepping, right? That's another.
In a sense, yeah, you really are.
That's good advice. When you were telling me about just the common sense stuff about locking your doors and things like that, there's videos that from our area where people just go around and they have cameras outside, right? So people are taking videos and they're able to grab them off of their cameras. But people will just go around in the middle of the night and will just try your door, and if it opens, then they will rifle through it and try to find something, a quick win for themselves.
Yep.
But if it's locked, they just move on. And
Crime
so
of opportunity. Absolutely.
exactly what you were saying. And then we did have a situation where my son, and this is one of the things where I was like, do not leave anything in your car that looks like a backpack or whatever. People will think that there's a computer, a laptop, that you have something there. Just take it out. And there was this one time where he didn't listen, and sure enough, someone they tried to break the front window to get in. And the thing is, he didn't even have anything. All he had was like clothes in his backpack. And so I'm like, that was a hard lesson to learn. I know that I've had teaching friends who went into a restaurant, had their district computer with them that had a lot of sensitive information, and they went in to eat lunch and came back and their car was broken into just for that laptop, and that's all they took. So exactly like what you were talking about, a crime of opportunity. So it can happen that fast if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, put those items in your trunk. If you can slide them under your seat. Worst case scenario, I always carry a blanket in both my work truck and my personal truck. Worst case scenario, if I've got something in my truck and I have to leave it, I at least put it down on the floor. I cover it with a blanket. My windows are tinted too, so it makes it a little bit harder to see. But I never, if you're going to look into my truck and see something, you're really, really going to have to work at it because I'm going to do the best that I can to cover and conceal anything I think might represent a target to a potential thief.
Yeah, yeah, and it's that extra 2-3 seconds of, like you said, covering something up that saves you money and time of having to go get a window repaired and all that kind of stuff. Taking time off of work, and just a couple of seconds to take care of something just pays off big. But you don't really get that until it happens to you, right? You don't really feel that or realize that until it happens, and you wind up waiting, to get your window fixed and paying $200-300. It sucks, man. Sucks.
Yeah, and I want to apologize, everybody. I'm eating cough drops. I've had a horrible cough today, so I apologize if you can hear it click around. But I figured it's probably better to hear me sucking on a cough drop than to hear me coughing up a lung. but going back to I wanted to hit some other things. Uh, Both home and auto. Light is your friend. At my house, I keep all the outside lights on. I keep them on all night long. Uh, if you're going to an event, uh, like a big event, if you're going shopping or you're going to a sporting event or somewhere where there's a huge parking lot, I always try to park underneath the parking lights, the big tall parking lights. I do this for two reasons. One, if I'm going to be there at night, that provides extra light so that I can see. And the other reason, if you go to a sporting event and there's 20,000 cars there, when you walk out, now you're trying to figure out, okay, where did I park? Well, if you know you're parked under a parking light, that narrows it down a little bit. It makes it a little bit easier to find your car. Uh, Thieves hate lights. So, in addition to parking under a light, leaving your porch lights on, you might go around and install motion lights around your house. Turn all your lights on, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Go outside and look around and see where are the dark spots on my house, and that's where you might want to install some motion lights. I know you can go on Amazon and they're not terribly expensive. My parents had some solar lights where they have a little solar deal that they charge during the day and then they come on at night when it's dark, and then when the sun comes up they turn off, and they're not terribly expensive. You can attach them to the house, and they really help to detract thieves and criminals who obviously do not want to be seen, and for the most part, and so that's huge, or potentially huge.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Um, you talked about motion lights. What do you think about something like the Ring doorbell or something? Other cameras out, motion cameras and stuff like that out there.
Absolutely. I've got cameras here at my house. I'm getting ready to install another one on my driveway. I believe it or not, I have a marked unit that I drive home every day, but that doesn't necessarily really brazen criminals. That's not necessarily going to stop them. I actually, a friend of mine who worked for a police department over the summer, they had a massive gang unit conference in Oklahoma City, and they had three different police cars, marked police cars, that were broke into at a a huge parking lot, multi-tiered parking lot. So just because I have a marked unit doesn't necessarily mean that people won't attempt to break into it. So I've got a camera on the front door. I'm putting in a camera over the driveway. I've got a camera at the back door. Absolutely, and they've come down in price so much that for just I'd say a couple $100, but in the grand scheme, that's not terribly expensive. And in some cases, some homeowners insurance policies will reduce your rate a little bit by installing some of these features.
That's a good point. So, since we're talking about stuff like that, what do you think about home alarms? So, two questions. What do you think about home alarms that are monitored, like ADT, Brinks? Those are the big ones here, I guess, in where I'm at. And then, what do you think about versus the DIY, do-it-yourself type alarms?
Well, if you're gone a lot or if nobody's home, I don't know how much a DIY will help. I mean, if you're home all the time, obviously it's going to help you. It's not uncommon for my department to multiple times a day to get, hey, we've got an alarm call at this address. Now, it may take us 5-10 minutes to get there, but at least we're in route. Whereas if it's a DIY and you're not home and it doesn't notify anybody, it's not really doing you all that much good. So,
Well, let me clarify. The DIYs, a lot of them can monitor,
okay.
and can do that. So I just meant that it's
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So it'll send you an alert on your phone.
it'll do your phone, but you can also dial into a monitoring service
Oh, okay.
as
Okay.
well. It's just you're not paying a monthly fee for the service, right? I mean, you might pay a small amount for the monitoring service, but not like you would pay for the big one.
As long as it's monitored in some way, shape, or form, then absolutely. I think everything like that only adds to your ability to try to detect it either as it's happening or right before it happens. I think I saw something several months ago. It's some sort of doorbell alarm that there's a small camera hidden in the
Mhm.
door, and anytime somebody walks up your front door, it'll notify you when you're gone, and it'll you can watch the video, and that's I can watch the videos on my the cameras on my house from my cell phone. So absolutely anything like that, as long as you have a way to monitor it while you're gone, or it will notify you should something happen, then absolutely.
Yeah, those are great. I do have one of those. It's the Ring doorbell alarm, and I think it's like $5 a month
Mhm.
for the monitoring. And yeah, you're right. It takes video. When someone comes, I mean, you could talk with them. I could be at work and someone rings the doorbell. They think I'm at home. I mean, it's pretty awesome to be able to do that.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so I get that question a lot about the home alarm systems DIY. You don't believe that just the ability to make a lot of noise would keep somebody from breaking in, or keep them running, where they might break in but they run away.
Oh no, no, no! Any type of noise or audible alarm, I think can possibly be a deterrent. Uh, I encourage people, hey, if you can get a dog, even if it's a little yippy dog, if it's one that's just going to bark nonstop, you may be at the back end of the house and your dog won't just stop barking. You're going to go out and try to figure out what's going on. So, absolutely, the more attention that you can draw, in the end, the better that's going to be. That's what it may not stop it, but in every single case, but it definitely isn't going to hurt.
Okay, awesome. Okay, good advice. So, what are some myths around home security? Are there any myths that you can share with us?
Um, I- most most break-ins actually they happen during the day. I think a lot of people have this idea that it's going to happen at midnight when they're asleep, and it does in a lot of cases. But the vast majority of break-ins are during the day while people are gone or at work. Um, a lot of people will, and you can watch the video. They'll come up and they'll, like you said, they'll try the front door. Hey, it's open. They'll come on in. Um, a lot of them, my sisters broke into several years ago. They jumped the backyard. They jumped into the backyard and used a table to climb up to the second floor. She had a little landing. They used a patio table, climbed up, broke in to the window, and got in. That's how they broke into her house. So, or I didn't break the window, but they just lifted the window, and that's why I tell people, hey, lock all your windows. Um, but yeah, I think one of the biggest myths is people think it all happens at night when the vast majority happen during the day.
Mm. Well, you touched on a subject or a topic that I hear often about being careful what you have on in your perimeter of your home. Like you said, the table there. Now, of course, if you have a backyard, uh, you know you want to go out and enjoy the backyard. You have a table. Of course, you're not going to move your table in and out all the time.
Right.
But what other kinds of things have you seen in your experience that has been detrimental to home security in your experience?
Uh, people will people will hide keys in the most obvious place, under a mat, use a fake rock. Uh, I don't know how many times people have broke in. Uh, they're in a two-story house, and you go in the backyard and there's a ladder. They just left their ladder laying in the backyard. The thief put it up, climbed up the second window or second story, opened a window, and in he went. Um, what I encourage people to do, and we actually had this as a kid, those prickly thorn bushes, we had them lined under bedroom windows. We didn't have them cover the window. We wanted to be able to see in and out, but they were blocking a lot of those windows. Um, I think the other thing is I tend to keep the blinds in my house closed. I don't want people looking in. I don't want them to see what I have in. Um, but anything you can do to slow down a thief, uh, without impairing your view to be able to look out and see what's going on outside.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so what other things when one of the things that I have considered is like a door jamb.
Mhm.
One of those where, I mean, of course, you can do the screws like you talked about, and the striker plates and all those types of things. Are they worth it? Those door jams that will, that you can push up against the door and they'll just brace it basically.
Yeah, especially if you're home. Um, Unfortunately, home invasions are they're on the rise, and it's not uncommon now for people to come up and just try to kick in your door, run in, and grab whatever they need. So yeah, if you're home, especially at night, and you can jam the door, absolutely. I would say though, be sure it's something that you can easily undo, because if something happens, your house catches on fire, and you need to be able to get out, you don't want to have to spend a lot of time trying to get that door open. So it's something that should slide down. It's and they make all kinds of braces and whatnot that are easy to put down. It will help to reinforce that door, and in a really in an emergency situation, you can pull it up in about 2 seconds.
Okay, cool. All right, so I know you have a lot of people that are gonna watch this video, that are gonna listen to the audio version of it as well, and they believe in carrying concealed, they believe in Second Amendment, those types of things. When it comes to protecting your home, what kind of advice can you give us there as it relates to firearms?
Mm. Um, I I get so many people ask me, hey, what's the best home defense? Is it a shotgun? Is it this? Is it that? The first thing I'm going to say is it's a firearm that you have access to, that you feel proficient with. Um, Earlier this year, yeah, about the beginning of the year, I worked at a homicide, and it was a justifiable homicide. A guy had busted into another guy's house, and the homeowner shot him close range, 12 gauge bird shot, and it killed him.
Mm,
So, you know, am I saying you should have a shotgun? Well, if you feel comfortable with it. My mom, for example, has a little Sig 380. Um, she's 70. She can't handle a 357 or a 1911, a 45. So to me, the number one thing, and I preach this with all firearms, is the number one firearm is one that you can handle, and one that you feel comfortable with, and one that you practice.
okay, good advice. Now, what would you say to someone if they were home and they did feel like someone was breaking in? Again, with knowing that people are, Second Amendment, and
Mhm.
and we believe in defending ourselves and all that good stuff. What kind of advice as a police officer would you give to someone who maybe they hear things stirring in the backyard or maybe the front yard, and they go into action?
Well, in my state, we have the Make My Day law, which basically means if somebody breaks into your home and you are fearful for your life, your safety, the life or safety of your family members, you can use deadly force to protect yourself. What I always encourage people to do, number one thing, call 911 first thing, immediately. Keep them on the line, because that will at least get law enforcement activated. If you have a firearm, have it with you. Um, I know 9 times out of 10, and I'd be the same way. The first thing I want to do is go and and confront the person. But the number one thing is stop, listen, and pay attention. Is there more than one person? Is it really, is it somebody breaking in, or could it be something else? Years ago, I actually took a call. A man thought somebody was breaking into his house, and the first thing he did, he didn't call the police. He called the neighbor, and then the neighbor said, "Well, call the police." So the first guy hung up and called police. They dispatched me. Well, the neighbor thought, "Well, I'm going to come help him." So he grabs a gun and goes running across the yard to his neighbor's house. About the time I show up, and I see a man with a gun at night running across the yard. So, I pull out, and I put him at gunpoint. I get him on the ground. And it turns out the whole thing, the person breaking into the house was actually the homeowner's teenage son, who'd snuck out and had got locked out, was trying to sneak his way back in. So absolutely, you want to protect yourself, but you want to be aware of your surroundings. You want to make sure that that this, whatever it is a true and clear threat and not something else.
And that would be. I mean, that could have ended very badly, right, for
Yes,
that teenager.
yes. The
And
teenager could have been shot. The neighbor could have been shot. It could have been. And fortunately, everybody was fine. But I was, you're with your adrenaline going. That fight or flight kicks in. But stay calm. Take deep breaths. When you're on the phone, especially with 911, they will walk you through it, and they'll try to help keep you calm, because it can be so emotional and so, it can be scary. I'm not gonna lie. So, but definitely call 911, and if you feel the need to, have your firearm ready. I I I I'm going to search the house. I hate to tell people not to do that, but you may try to lock yourself in one room, and be ready. And that way, if they're busting into your room, then you clearly know, okay, this is a clear and present danger.
right, okay, yeah, and that's one of those places where all the lights that you put up, that would be helpful. If you have cameras, would be very helpful. And if you were, I just imagine, because I've got teenage kids too, right?
Yep.
And that's something that has gone through my mind as well. Is I would hate to think someone was breaking in and you wind up pulling the trigger because your adrenaline is going and you're
Yep.
fearful and all those things, and you wind up killing someone that you care about and you love,
Mm-hmm.
when a couple of $100, different equipment, lights, camera, whatever, you that wouldn't have happened. You would have saved someone's life. And so definitely it goes back to that being prepared and thinking things through. And so that's really good advice. um,
So,
Go ahead.
something I wanted to add. I talked about that fear and that adrenaline. The more you train and practice with your firearm, the more confident you're going to be, and the more that fear. I don't want to say that fear goes away, but you're better able to deal with it when your skill, when your ability goes up, your confidence goes up. And so I always encourage you, if you have a gun, don't lock it in the safe. Go to the range, practice a lot, change up how you practice. So many people go to the range, they put the target at 5 yards, they shoot 50 rounds, and they're done. No, change it up. Do things to get you out of your element. If you can, do push-ups, or run a lap and then come back, draw your gun, and try to shoot at 3 feet, shoot at 3 yards, shoot at 15 yards. Change up and change everything that you do, so that your skill level will increase. Don't do the same training over and over and over.
Good advice. Good advice. All right, so we're winding down here. I do have another question. It's not
Okay.
related to home security, that someone left on the Facebook page. And so but I wanted to give you that opportunity. Is there anything else about home security that you want to share with the viewers, with the listeners, before we move on to this last question?
Uh, I think I've covered it, most of it. I mentioned, like I said, I'm going over again. Be sure to lock your doors, lock your locks, your windows. The other thing I mentioned, uh, and I wanted to cover on this a little bit earlier. I mentioned, when you park under a light or whatever. The other thing I would encourage people to do, before you walk out to your car, because a lot of attacks happen at night when you're going to your car. If you're parked under a light, but before you leave the building, or whatever of it, get dig the keys out of your purse or out of your pocket. Find the key for your door. Have that ready, and as you're walking in your car, look around, see what's going on around you. Put your phone in your pocket, put it in your purse. If you have a key fob, have the button ready to go, so that when you walk up to your car, boom, you can hit the button, or you can unlock the car immediately. Get in. The first thing you do when you shut your door, lock the car. Then you can start your car, look around, keep your eyes open. But all those distractions, that, looking for your car keys or looking at your phone, especially at night, especially in large, populated areas, get rid of as much of that distraction as you can.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So this next question is not necessarily from about home security, but it was left on the Facebook page, and it's about just as a police officer what y'all are seeing regionally, right? And so specifically, I think it was this person lives in the Pacific Northwest, and what kinds of things are you seeing? If you could speak a little bit, maybe to some of that violence, if you feel comfortable talking a little bit about that. Of course, I know we've already mentioned that where you live is you just you wouldn't be sending your kids or necessarily vacationing in some other parts of the country. But is there anything from a police officers or law enforcement position that you're hearing about things that are going on in other parts of the country?
We actually talked a little bit about before. For those that don't know, I live in central Oklahoma. We're still a fairly conservative state. We still have a pretty pro law enforcement community around here. At least once a week, somebody will come up and thank me for my service, which, believe it or not, I really appreciate that because I see, when I see, I'm on social media, I'm on a lot of other law enforcement websites and social media sites, and I see some of the crap and the grief that these officers in other areas go through. In fact, the gentleman that talked about being from the Northwest, I actually read something today where Seattle Police Department is having a huge problem right now attracting and retaining their police officers. They're all leaving Seattle, going to other municipalities, and a lot of it is the political climate that they don't feel like they're getting the support from the politicians who will pander to, I hate to say it, they'll pander to that social justice crowd. And the mayor today, what I actually read, the solution to keeping the cops was to actually insult them and say, well, they're mall cops that are leaving. And so I really feel for police officers, especially in Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, some of those cities. I really feel for them because it's got to be hard to work
Wow. Yeah. Um, Along those lines, I know you talked a little bit about being Central Oklahoma a little bit more conservative, but have y'all talked about the possibility of protest? Have y'all talked about the possibility of maybe civil unrest as a law enforcement agency?
there. We have a little bit. There was a shooting. Oh, and I can't think of her name in Tulsa a year or two ago. A white female officer shot and killed a black motorist. There were some protests there. It's come up a little bit here, but for the most part, like I said, being in central Oklahoma, being in a suburb area of Oklahoma City, it, it's in the back of our mind. Sure, it's obvious. It's something we think about having to go out and confront somebody, and being put in a situation where you may have to shoot somebody, you may have to shoot a minority. And I promise you, I'm here to tell you, police are not waking up in the morning thinking, "Hey, maybe I get to shoot somebody today." Not at all. That is the last thing that we want to do. However, at the end of the day, we want to go home. We want to be safe, and I will use whatever means necessary to defend myself and to defend the citizens that I protect
Yeah.
and that I serve.
Well, again, thank you for that. I know when Ferguson was going on and they were talking about doing protests all over the place, they ramped up here in Houston, and the police officers, they were geared up, and they had already said, we are not going to allow looting, we are not going to allow that. If you come and you start doing that, man, you're going to be taken down. And so they had a big show of force in the protest that happened downtown. And they were. I didn't doubt that they would be ready to go and deal with anything that needed to be. Of course, the numbers weren't as big as like New York and stuff like that. But I guess different law enforcement agencies are going to react differently to those types of things. And so, again, we appreciate your service. Those of us that are listening, we do appreciate that. As we close out, where can people, if they want to know more about you and the articles that you're putting out, and what you're doing in the preparedness community, where can they find you?
Yeah, my website is called planandprepared.com. I'm also on Twitter under Plan and Prepared. I'm same thing on Facebook. I'm James Leery on Facebook. I also have Plan and Prepared Facebook. I think it's Facebook.com/Plan and Prepared. I believe is what it is. So absolutely reach out to me. I love to answer questions. People ask me questions all the time, either from a prepper standpoint, from a law enforcement standpoint. I absolutely.
Awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
and my email is a planandprepared@gmail.com. Yeah, I mentioned Facebook, Twitter, email. So yeah, there are multiple ways you can get a hold of me.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, definitely we will continue to link to your articles because they're always good and read them on the podcast. We do appreciate it. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign out here. Again, thanks so much for hanging out with us today, James. We greatly
One
appreciate
last
it.
thing, if you don't mind, I want to give a shout out to my son. He leaves Monday morning for San Antonio. He's going into the Air Force, doing computer cyber stuff, computer stuff. Very proud of him. So, and of course, Veterans Day just a few days ago. I want to say thank you to all the veterans out there who have served. We are free as a nation because of you. So I wanted to say thank you to the veterans out
Awesome, awesome. And then I didn't mention it, but you're doing this on your birthday, man. So this is your birthday. Happy birthday on that.
there. Thank
And doing it with a cough and everything. So we do appreciate your commitment all the way around. So thanks so much.
you. Hey, thank you for having me, Todd. I had a great time.
It's been a pleasure.